Hey, yo, what's good, my fellow masters? So I expected this second banner for the Halloween Rebellion event to come out later this week. Secondary banners tend to be released about a week after the event starts, so I figured I had a few days to prepare, slowpoke that I am. So this overview of the servants featured in this banner will be a bit more simplified than I originally intended. If there was one thing I at least wanted to highlight, it was when these servants will next be available for summoning. If you're anything like me, I would like to know if I can delay summoning for servants I'm relatively interested in, so I can save SQ for higher priority servants that are coming up. That said, let's see who we're being tempted with on this Halloween Rebellion banner number 2. There are 4 SSRs that will rotate in and out during this banner, 3 limited time and 1 from the permanent summoning pool. Plus, each will be paired up with an SR unit, 3 of those SRs permanent and 1 story locked. First up is the SSR Jacques de Molay, the infamous Knights Templar turned into a seductive foreigner class waifu. She is an area of effect quick-based unit, and her kit offers a few key things. A 30% NP self-charge, plus a separate 20% NP charge for the party. A change to the evil alignment for the party, which then allows them to gain a 1-turn invincibility buff from Jacques. And a buff to her damage versus enemies inflicted with a curse status. That works nicely with her AoE MP, which both inflicts curse and the overall damage the curse debuff does. And one of my favorite types of overcharge effects, a 3-turn increase to her MP damage that activates first. Overall, I quite like her split MP battery and various party-wide buffs, including an attack and crit strength increase, plus a stars per turn utility. And if her curse damage modifier is leveraged, then Jacques' MP can hit decently hard. So if you're looking to add an SSR AoE foreigner to your Chaldea, then I think Jacques can be a solid choice. Though a new AoE SSR foreigner, a Buster unit, will be introduced with Lost Belt 7 in January. Kukulkan brings some similar advantages in terms of party utility, but with niches against both Earth Attribute and Threat to Humanity enemies. So you may want to wait for Kuku instead. Fortunately, there is at least one known future banner for Jacques around April of next year. She may also have a potential banner in June of 2026 as well, but that's dependent on a survey, assuming an identical campaign for NA. Jacques' currently on rotation and available until 2059 PDT, October 15th. Her SR partner is the permanent single-target quick assassin Yan Chin. This rather handsome martial artist with some very cool tattoos is all about the critical star control, or rather that was his sole thing. He has since received a couple of skill upgrades that broaden his capabilities. Notably is his latest rank up, released with this Halloween event, that gives him a niche against enemies that have the lawful and or evil alignment. Post his first rank up quest, Yang Chin's MP reduces the target's resistance to quick, debuffs her crit damage, and buffs his own critical strength. Before all of his buffs, Yan Qing was mostly an ST assassin you used if he was all that you had. After all, you tend to use what you have available. Fully upgraded, he becomes significantly more usable, especially given his anti-lawful, anti-evil thing he's got going on now. Should you roll specifically for him? Not really. He can always spook you on other banners being that he's permanent. That said, he does not have any known future rate ups at the moment. Moving on to the next SSR on the schedule, we have the spunky, lively, and absolutely cheerful archer class Sei Shounagon. Affectionately called Nagiko, she is an AoE quick servant with several things in her kit that I like. She can buff both her quick cards and her attack, of which extends to the party for a bit of utility. Furthermore, Nagiko can also provide healing per turn and modest MP charge per turn to the party. Her hard defense is a 3-hit evasion, and she has a 20% NP self-charge with a future skill upgrade that gives her a separate additional 30% NP charge, though that rank up is quite a long time from now. Love that Nagiko's NP has 3 different special damage modifiers, one against neutral alignment servants, the other versus shadow servants, and thirdly those with a man attribute. Sure, the odds of leveraging all 3 special damage effects may be a bit long, but they're relatively broad in terms of encounter frequency, so I don't think Nagiko's overall usability will be an issue. Though, I suppose if there was one thing that really comes to mind when considering Nagiko, it would be her fun personality. I think she is such a blast whenever she shows up in the story, events, or otherwise. But that's a your mileage may vary type of thing. In terms of alternatives for upcoming limited AoE SSR archers, the King of Heroes will be on a banner in January and expected again in March of next year. And while Gilgamesh may not have as many bells and whistles in his kit, it is still quite effective, and his damage, both his face cards and MP, is formidable, especially the latter when against the majority of servants. Say Shounagon will have other banners in the future, one next February and the February of 2026, and in July of 2026. And for this banner, she will be available from October 14th to the 16th. Accompanying Sei is the story-locked SR Saber Yagyu Munenori. This gruff-looking yet distinguished older gentleman is a single-target arts unit that can pack quite a punch, or perhaps slash would be more appropriate. Munenori's kit boils down to critical damage and attack reduction for the enemy, though unfortunately his self-buffs to attack, arts, performance, crit damage, and star absorb only last for one turn each. To somewhat balance out, all three of his skills are on relatively short cooldowns of 5 turns when maxed. While the one-turn buffs are something I tend to dislike, Munenori is fully capable of taking down a target quickly through a brutal combo of his MP and bursting down the rest with a well-placed crit. Then he negates a considerable portion of incoming attacks with his debuffs. Ultimately, if Munenori is someone you've been wanting to add to your roster, then he is probably the most compelling of the SRs on the banner, given his story lock status. However, if you can wait, he will be on rate up again in September next year. Not to mention a little later this year, November too. I also wanted to point out that Munenori, and all of the SRs on this banner for that matter, will be among the choices for a free SR ticket that is expected in September next year. Coming up on the banner schedule after Sei Shounagon is fellow Japanese author of renown, Murasaki Shikibu. This bombshell of a bookworm is an AoE arts caster and quite an effective arts looper at that. Highlighting some cool things about her kit, she can provide the party a buff to damage against demonic enemies, give the party a 3-hit damage cut defense along with a one-time debuff immunity and buff removal resistance increase. Murasaki can also debuff the defense of enemies, plus seal one of their MPs for a turn. Furthermore, she can block enemy buffs through her MP and gets an extra damage modifier against demonic enemies via the overcharge. Suffice it to say, Murasaki really shines when up against enemies with a demonic trait. Though outside of her niche, her overall MP damage can be lacking at NP1. Fortunately, a future skill upgrade will give her the ability to buff the party's damage versus chaotic and or good enemies. So in the long run, Murasaki's usability is broadened, making her that much more effective. Not that her demonic niche was a narrow one or anything. We certainly encounter an ample amount of such enemies in farming. And for higher difficulty quests with gimmicks, Murasaki's party-wide debuff immunity and buff removal resistance can be indispensable. But while I think Murasaki is a good choice for an SSR AoE caster, there will be other opportunities to obtain her down the line. She will have other banners, one next February, and the February a year after that. For this Halloween banner, she will be available to summon from October 15th to the 17th. The permanent SR Lancer Qing Liangyu will be joining Murasaki on Raid Up. Some say Chun-Li actually copied her style, and that she mostly hangs out with Yang Qin in the second archive. But all we know is, Qin Liangyu is an art support type unit. Though her MP is a non-damaging type, it's mainly built around enemy debuffs from an on-hit activation from Qin Liangyu. And the party does benefit from its HP recovery, but it's dependent on if the enemy hits him with a crit. Sensing a pattern here? Like Yanqing, she gets a rank up that upgrades her third skill, giving Qin Liangyu access to crit stars, a longer lasting guts effect, and an increased MP charge. Though, sadly, the cooldown is still a lengthy 8 turns. She is permanent, so rolling specifically for her wouldn't really be warranted. Though notably beyond this Halloween banner, she does not have any more in the future, for the time being anyway. Last up on the banner schedule is the permanent SSR AoE Quick Rider Taigong Wang. This talented Taoist and strategist from ancient China can likely be found near a fish pond, but when used in battle, his kit brings forth a variety of things that I like. Party-wide buffs to quick, to attack, and NP damage. A significant buff to his own damage against divine enemies and demonic enemies, both traits that are frequently encountered in the game, and what is effectively a 50% NP charge for himself and 20% for the party. Then to really solidify his anti-divine niche, his MP does further damage to that specific trait. So if you need an anti-divine AoE servant, Taigong Wang can certainly perform well in that regard, even more so if one or more of those servants have both the divine and demonic traits. And you know I love servants with a 50% NP battery, let alone one that also moderately charges the party's gauge as well. The only thing that he lacks is some sort of survivability option, but that can always be addressed another way. It's just one of those things that's nice to have and further enhances the servant's overall kit. If you don't have an AoE SSR rider, then I think Taigong Wang would be a good choice. But if there are other servants that you're targeting down the line, then it's perfectly safe to skip him this time around. He will have a raid up during the Chaldea Boys event that occurs every March, plus he will also have banners in October 2025 and June of 2026. For the Halloween banner number 2, Taigong Wang is scheduled for October 16th to the 18th. And his raid up partner is the permanent SR Avenger Hessian Lobo. This fearsome looking doggo is a single target quick unit with an instant kill effect. He also does moderate extra damage against enemies with the man attribute, something upgraded from a rank up skill buff. And thankfully that rank up also extends his attack buff from 2 to 3 turns. A couple of other notable things about Lobo's kit is his ability to remove a target's buffs, gotta love that, and the ignore evasion effect on his MP. Lobo would be a fine addition if you're lacking a single target Avenger. Properly supported, he can hit quite hard, and more so if the target has a man attribute. But like the other permanent SRs on this banner, I don't think it's particularly warranted to roll specifically for him, especially since one of the hardest hitting units in the game, Avenger Jean Alter, is expected on a banner coming in the next few weeks. But if Lobo doesn't spook you between now and July of next year, he will have another banner then. So all temptations have been alleviated, right? Well, mostly, I suppose. The point is, I wouldn't worry about missing out if any of these servants interest you. Naturally, if you have been specifically targeting someone discussed here, then by all means, and best of luck on those rolls. Let me know in the comments if this applies to you. But for those that may be on the fence or simply wondering if any of these servants are of particular significance, likely those that haven't been playing that long, well, here's a hint. If you're relatively new to the game, the servants that can have a significant impact on your roster will start appearing mid-November and into December. Hope this was helpful and enjoyable in some way, and if it was, then please don't forget to hit that like button. And I'm not too far off from hitting 18k subs, so if you haven't yet, please do consider subscribing for more content like this. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, cheers!